What's up, y'all? It's me, it's ABC coming at you live from my lovely place here in the Pacific Northwest. Everybody knows where I am. No surprise. Today's show is a special show because I am actually debuting on Twitch. So this is a good thing. I heard good things about Twitch, so I decided to sign up, do my debut my show on Twitch. Also, this show is going to be on Spotify. So now, from here on, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Twitch, and I'm on Apple Podcasts. So if you want to watch me live while I record this, then that's Facebook and Twitch. If you don't have Facebook or Twitch and you want to listen to me audio on demand, then that's Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So you'll see me there. If you're on social media, look up @JRamseyABC. So @JRamseyABC on Twitch, @JRamseyABC on Facebook. Also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, search the ABC podcast on Riverside, and then it'll come right up. Now, a caveat about that, because I looked at Apple Podcasts. My old podcast from Blog Talk Radio is still there, all right? So if you look up the ABC podcast on Riverside, the ABC podcast on Blog Talk Radio will also come up. That's dismantled, all right? So don't follow that. Follow the ABC podcast on Riverside. It's the one with me in the blue suit and sunglasses. That's the one you want. That's going to be the show. So you'll get all the episodes as they come. Now, today's show is brought to you by, as always, More Than Rocks. More Than Rocks. If you are in Washington, anywhere in the Kent, Covington, Auburn area, give these people a visit. If you have a spiritual, metaphysical need or anything like that you need to take care of, maybe your chakras are a little out of balance, your energy is a little out of balance, and you may need some crystals and singing bowls and stuff to help get that energy right, go to More Than Rocks, because they have it all. They have rocks and crystals and gems and everything you need to get your energy right. They also sell candles, they sell singing bowls, they sell incense and incense holders and all kinds of things to get your energy right. They also sell custom pieces. They make actually jewelry out of their rocks and gems and rocks and crystals and gems. This is a nice little piece that I picked up from them. I always tout this piece. I might go get another one too, because I like their bracelets. But More Than Rocks, they're on 315 West Meeker Street in the city of Kent. 315 Meeker Street in Kent, near Meeker and 4th. Go there, talk to Alyssa and Sammy. They're very knowledgeable. They'll square you away. They'll get you whatever rock or crystal you need to get your energy right. So More Than Rocks, go see them. Now, on with the show, because I want to talk to you today on a message entitled Skiing Down the Relationship Mountain. What does that mean? Skiing down the relationship mountain. I put it out on TikTok that I was going to do this show. Here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about skiing down the relationship mountain. And a lot of people do this and they don't know it. They just ask, where are all the good women? Where are all the good men? Not even realizing that they're literally skiing, well, not literally, but figuratively skiing down the relationship mountain. They're on this course. Here's the deal. And here's the world according to Garth. Generally speaking, as a life lesson, your first relationship is going to be your best. It's going to be the best one. Your first long-term relationship, that's going to be your best one. Absolutely, right? A lot of people don't know this, but your first relationship is going to be your best. It only goes downhill from there. Why is that? We'll get into that in a minute. But picture a skier, right? Gets on the ski slope, goes to the top of the mountain. At the top of the mountain, he pushes himself off, he slaloms and does this thing, and then he ends up on the bottom. That's usually how skiing goes. A lot of people do this with their relationship. They start at the top, or where they think the top is. The problem is, when they break up with that person, the next person they get with won't be as good. It just won't. Why not? And it's more pronounced for women than for men. Men have a little bit of wiggle room, because with time, the dating market begins to favor men. It heavily favors women up to about 30. Between 30 and 35, things are about even par. After 35, the dating market heavily favors men. Now, men can kind of get away with skiing down the relationship mountain, because in time, with the growth of his wealth and assets and things like that, he'll have more women, he'll have more female suitors available to him, and he'll be able to pick. It's not so for women, all right? It's not so for women. This is why this particular podcast is geared more toward women. Because women, you're not doing yourselves any justice. You're really not. You're not doing yourselves any favors by skiing down this relationship mountain. Your first selections, a lot of y'all's first selections are horrible, right? And it just gets worse from there. And by the time you're done and you quit and you give up and you're asking where are all the good men, and then you're like the one lady that I highlighted in my last show. She's 60 years old and single, talking about I don't need a man. Why? Because she started at the middle of the mountain and skied her way down instead of doing the smart thing, and when she was younger choosing from the best of the best and then working your way down, maybe somewhere up here where you find your true mate. Probably won't be down here unless something's going on mentally or personally. With that woman, who knows? You start at the top and you ski your way down. A lot of women have good men. They marry good men. The problem is they break up with these good men, they divorce these good men because they're bored or they're looking for something or whatever, right? Whatever the case may be. Now, I'm not talking about like alcohol abuse and things like that or other good reasons for the split to happen. Kids being involved is a whole other show, but I'm just talking about just a divorce in general. But a lot of women, 8.5 times out of 10, 8 to 8.5 times out of 10, they'll divorce their husband because they're bored. And they'll file something like irreconcilable differences because they can't prove abuse or anything like that. They can't prove any of the aggravating circumstances around divorce. So they go ahead and they file irreconcilable differences. Why? Because it's an easy way to get divorced without having to explain to the judge that they just got bored. Because you walk into the court and say, I'm divorcing them just because I'm bored with them. You understand that's not cool. The judge is going to look at you like, really, lady? So again, they file irreconcilable differences. It's an easy thing that came out of no-fault divorce, and this is literally how it happens. Now they divorce that man, they get with the next one. The next one's not going to be as good as that first one. Almost guaranteed. Almost, I would put that about 80% guarantee, 85% guarantee. The only reason why I put it that low is because I know a few cases where it actually worked out. But in the overwhelming majority of cases, the second one is not going to be as good as the first one. Not going to. Why? Because as time marches on, and this is something that women far and abroad, well, I don't know about like Asian women, I mean, this isn't a thing with Asian women, or I don't think even Hispanic women, and I don't think this is even a concept with Arab women or Middle Eastern women, and definitely not Israeli women. But Western women have this thing where they just don't want to accept the fact that their value declines with time. They just don't want to, even though it does, even though we can point to example after example after example how their value decreases with time. They refuse to accept it. And because they refuse to accept it, they think that at 35 and 40 and 45 years old, they still have the ability to choose from the best of the best men. And they don't, because the best of the best of the best men have also the best of the best of the best women after them, because they're the best of the best. They're the top 10%. They're the top 1%, whatever you want to call him. Even if he's not a top 10%, 1% earner, and just by track record, and I'm talking about your factory workers, your Boeing people who work at Boeing, people who work at like Ford and shit, who make this money, like oil riggers and miners, and who make a lot of money, like hazard pay and all this other pay. Maybe not in the top 10%, making like 200, 250, 300,000, not that level, but they're making like 90, they're making between like 85 and 100,000. But they pay their bills, they own their cars, they own their house. So they have their assets together. They have investments, they have 401ks and things like that. So when they retire, they're good, right? They're good. All their bills are paid. They don't have anything to worry about, even though they make $80,000, $90,000. They have nothing to worry about. They're good. They can bring somebody into their fold. Those men also have some of the best women after him. Why? Because there are only so many men at the very, very tip top. And I'm talking like the good men that are the top 1% of earners. Those men are extremely limited. Those men choosing wives, you understand that there's going to be a lot of women left out in the cold. Those women that are left out in the cold are trying to get married. So what they're going to do is they're going to abandon they'll do one of two things. They'll either abandon the prospect or the notion of getting one of these 1% men because they understand that the chances are slim to none, and they'll go for the Boeing worker, they'll go for the miner, they'll go for the oil rigger, the logger, the plumber, the electrician, and the $90,000 earners because they know that they're good men too. And they do have the capacity to take care of them. Now, will they have to work? Probably. But hey, if you can't get the 1% man, then you got to roll with the punches, right? So again, if they have to work, then they have to work. And if they have to work without kids, then they have to work without kids. But they'll take those men. Absolutely, because they're good men. They're good men. They work hard. They take care of their families. That's kind of the basic parameters. Let's go back to the no fault divorce. They divorce a good man. They divorce that man. They divorce the miner, the oil rigger, or the mechanic, or whatever, because they get bored, right? And they get bored because of something that I'm going to talk about next week that I already talked about a couple of weeks ago. But I'm going to revisit. I'm going to revisit something next week for Valentine's Day. It's going to be a Valentine's Day special. But I'm going to talk about that at the end of the show. But they divorce them because of certain phenomena that revolves around women's expectations. It's going to be called Great Expectations, Part 2, the Valentine's Day special. Women's expectations are pretty much, a lot of modern women have delusional expectations of marriage, all right? And they expect things from their men that literally, I wouldn't say impossible, but they expect things out of their men that they should expect from their friends or their girlfriends. I'm just going to put it out right there. Not only that, but they don't feel like they should have to work towards what it is that they want to get out. They just want to draw out and not want to put anything in, and that's a bad thing too. But I'm going to talk about that next week when I talk about Great Expectations Part 2, the Valentine's Day special. Now, they get divorced from this guy, this $80,000-$90,000 earner who takes care of his family because they're bored. Well, the next guy they get with, remember now they're a little older because remember they've been married. Maybe they punched out a kid or two, who knows? But let's say they did, right? Now they're a little older and they have kids in tow. They are not going to get that same level of man that they had. Why? Because the same level of man that they had don't want a woman with kids. They just don't. How do you know that? Because the man that she married, that she got from divorce from, took her. She didn't have any kids. So he picked her. One of the criteria that he picked her on was the fact that she didn't have kids. But now she has kids. So does she really think? And I had a conversation on a TikTok live. And this lady came on, and I swear she gave me a headache that it took me about almost an hour and a half to get rid of. Because she did not understand the fact that she didn't understand the fact that men have standards as well, and she didn't understand that a woman having kids, because the fact of the matter is 85% of single parent households are women raising their kids. That's the overwhelming majority of single parent households are women raising their kids, or mothers raising their kids. So the mothers bring their kids into this new relationship. The problem is she won't let the man discipline the kids. Why? Because that man's not the biological father, so she doesn't feel like he needs to be disciplining the kids. But she expects the man to actually cover things for her and the kids because that's her boyfriend, he makes the money. There's a problem there, Houston. This is why a lot of men are kind of wary or skeptical about women who have kids already. Getting into a relationship with women who have kids. Because they understand that being a step-parent is kind of a crappy deal. You have all of the responsibility, right? But none of the, I wouldn't say perks or benefits, but you have to pay, but you can't be the father. You literally can't. And I don't mean the father as in like you donate your seed. But you can't be dad. Can't be dad. Why? Because the child knows that you're not dad. The child, at its convenience, will point that fact out to you and will be backed up by the mother. So you have to pay out all this money on something that you don't even own. At least with cars and houses, if you pay the money, I get an apartment. With an apartment, you have to pay your money, but at least you get to live there and do it however you want it and blah, blah, blah. But like with cars and houses, when you pay your money, when you make your payment, the payments go toward owning it, right? So at some point that's going to be yours. Not with a woman and her kids that she's bringing in. You'll pay all this money, and just for the kid to say, you're not my dad, and it's to be backed up by the mother. Now what do? You're out all this money. And this just went belly up. So again, bad deal all around. Looking at it socially or economically, it's a bad deal all around. Now, let's get back to the woman with her kids. Men understand this, and they are wary about women with kids. So she has to take a step down. And she has to take a step down to a man who would accept a woman who has kids, because there are literally no better women in his orbit. Because if there were better women in his orbit, he would be with them. But he's not. So those better women, he does not have access to. He has access to you, this single mom with the kids. So y'all get together. But guess what? He's not as good as the one you left. And now you're complaining this guy's a real butthole. So you break up with him. But time marched on. Time marched on and your value got a little bit lower. Maybe you had a kid with this other guy before things went south, before things went south, before things went tits up. You had another kid with this guy. Now you have, what, 2 or 3 kids. You're older, and now you're back out on the dating market. Now, even the guy who was like, well, I'll take a woman with 2 kids, but definitely not with 3. Now you have to take another step down if you're going to do it. And even if you do find that guy, he's going to be a step down. You're going to get into a relationship with him, and you're going to realize that guy wasn't as good as the last guy, and definitely not as good as the first one. Skiing down the relationship mountain, it's a thing, and it's a thing. It's almost unique to women. I would say that. But it happens to men too. And it happens to men because the man's problem is he'll hop on the first thing that shows interest. And again, because there aren't too many women that show interest in men because they like to be chased, when he finds a woman that shows interest because of reasons, usually narcissism, but that's a whole other psychological thing that I'm not really willing to go into right now. But he'll latch onto that. He'll latch onto that. And that won't be the best. And so he'll realize that this woman ain't all she's cracked up to be, and then he'll go and he'll get with another, and he'll get with another, and he'll have this revolving door of just horrible women because he does not know how to discern good women from bad. That's a thing, and that's a thing that afflicts a lot of men. Also, because of either temporary or permanent involuntary celibacy, that also has a little bit to play as far as psychologically is concerned, why he chooses the women he does. Now, that's going to be a separate podcast because I need to address the men on that because I did that in my first podcast. But I want to dedicate a whole podcast to men. Why are you choosing why you're choosing? And again, men, why have you given up just because you've chosen badly? Now, back to this. Skiing down a relationship mountain. You understand that when you ski down this mountain, there's no way back up. Especially for women, there's no way back up. With men, men can recover. It just takes a lot of psychological fortitude. But women, it's almost unrecoverable. Because, well, let's get into why. Yeah, let's get into why. First, because your value decreases over time. And that's a hard pill for a lot of women to swallow. But it's true. Women's value decrease over time. It just does. With marriages, with relationships. And even if they don't have a lot of marriages or relationships, even if they don't get married and into their 30s and 40s, they haven't been married yet or don't have any kids yet, just time passing by. Because even if you were even though you were knockout gorgeous, even if you were just drop dead beautiful in your 20s, right? Think of, I don't know, Kathy Ireland. Think of Stacey Dash. Think of Naomi Campbell. Think of Tyra Banks. All these supermodels, right? Or actresses. Alicia Silverstone, Alyssa Milano, all these actresses who are like 9s and 10s in their 20s. What do they look like now, right? Now that they're in their 40s and 50s and even just some of them in their 60s. Think of Iman, right? Let's take Stacey Dash, because Stacey Dash was one of my favorite actresses when I was, in my earlier years. I would definitely classify her at 10 in her 20s. What does she look like? Well, look what she looks like now. She's almost 60, I believe. I don't think she's touched 60 yet. I don't know. I forgot when she was born. But I don't think she's touched 60 yet. But you can tell that every 10 years, and this is what I say, every 10 years takes 1 point off of your looks. Every 10 years, 1 point off of your looks. She was a 10 when she was 20. When she was 30, she was a 9. When she was 40, she's an 8. She's 50, she's a 7. Still pretty, but on the top end of average looking. When she's 60, she's going to catch up with the rest of the 60-year-old women. I mean, you know what I mean? She's going to rock average looks. There aren't too many women that are 9s and 10s into their 60s. There just aren't. Everybody wants to talk about Raquel Welch. No, not Raquel Welch. Even she was woefully average into her 60s. This is why a lot of actresses, especially actresses, once they hit like 40, then you'll start seeing the plastic surgery, you'll start seeing the Botox, you'll start seeing the desperate effort to cling on to their looks. Because they understand that their looks have faded and they need to keep up that youthfulness, right? They need to keep up that youthfulness. But time is just unforgiving. Time is unforgiving. Especially when women hit something called the wall. What is the wall? I think I explained the wall in my last podcast. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I explained the wall. What is the wall? Because everybody talks about the wall. but nobody really explains what the wall is. The wall is this. The wall is that point in your life, and it's different for every woman because it's biological. But the wall is the point in where you start losing your fertility cues. What do I mean by that? Well, a woman's fertility cues is her breasts being lifted, carrying her breasts high, her hips being round, and her waist being small and coming in. The typical hourglass figure is an indicator of fertility. Not only that, your skin, right? Your skin. Your skin is definitely an indicator of fertility because if it's tight and if it's bright, say, without a whole lot of stains and a whole lot of blemishes, that's a definite indicator of health and fertility. Of course, because it's your skin. If you're unhealthy, your skin will show you. Your skin is the first sign that you're unhealthy if you look at your skin. That's the first sign that something is wrong. It'll come out in your skin. So you look at your skin, you look at the figure. That's a sign of fertility. But what happens? What happens when you hit the wall? And like I explained before, your breasts kind of flatten out up here and then everything collects at the bottom. So you have a flattened up here and then everything collects at the bottom. Number one. Number two, your waist comes out a little bit, and number three, your hips start going in. So you take more of a blockish appearance than an hourglass. Loss of fertility, that signals an upcoming loss of fertility. And then your skin is going to start drooping, and wrinkles will start setting in, and then the blemishes start setting in as things happen with your overall health as you get older and further down the line. All of these things happen because of the wall. When a woman hits the wall, and she starts losing her fertility cues, then she'll notice that the amount of male prospects starts evaporating. It just does. She won't have access to the men who are higher up on the mountain, because the men who are higher up on the mountain are enjoying the women who are higher up on the mountain, if you understand what I'm saying. The men at the higher part of the mountain are enjoying the women at the higher part of the mountain, but since certain women are at the lower part of the mountain and can't go back up, then they have to just deal with whatever's on the bottom of the mountain. And this is why I say skiing down the relationship mountain, because, again, you start at the top. That's the best you're going to get. And as you go along in these long-term relationships, you head down the mountain. You head down the mountain, and you can't go back up. The ski lift is broke. Ski lift is broken, out of service. You can't do it. Once you hit the bottom, you got to get in your car and go home. When you hit the bottom and you're looking up, and you're like, wow, I can't get that. My prospects down here are just crap. There are just no there. And then this is when you hear women saying, there are no good men. They don't need a man. A man can't do what they can for them, what they can't do for themselves. Pretty much things that Maureen was telling me last week in that video that she made and made me laugh. But this is why you hear women. This is why you hear women say those things. This is why you hear women say, well, I don't need a man. There's nothing a man could do for me that I can't do for myself. Men are headaches. I don't want a man in my house. Blah, blah, blah. A man can't tell me what to do. It's not that they actually believe that. Because even if you hear them say that, you can always, with a few basic questions, get them to admit that yes, they do want a man and yes, they do want to get married. Just with a few basic questions. So even they don't believe their own BS. But the thing is, they're full of cope. All right, they're full of cope. And the way they cope is just by trying to get people to believe that they've given up because there's just nothing good out there. Now, like I said earlier in the show, there actually is. And the thing about it is, you don't have to be stuck with what's around you at the base of this mountain. You really don't have to be. Am I talking about being able to go back up the mountain and get those men up there? Probably not. But you definitely have to, women, you definitely have to flip your mentality. You have to flip your mentality. And this is why I recorded what men want a couple of weeks ago. You have to flip your mentality, and you got to figure out what men want and get on their page. Because there are a lot of men out there that are hiding. There are a lot of men out there that, even if they're not hiding, they're invisible to you. And they're invisible to you because you have that thing that you want in a man. You want that man at the top of the mountain. You see the man at the top of the mountain, and that's what you want, even though he's up there with the women that are at the top of the mountain. It's a crazy notion, and it's something that I myself have a hard time wrapping my brain around. But this is what it is. A lot of women at the bottom of the mountain are looking up at men at the top of the mountain, wanting them, even though they're enjoying the women at the top of the mountain. But the men at the bottom of the mountain are just completely invisible to them. Now I get it. There are a lot of no good men at the bottom of the mountain. Understood, point stipulated. However, with all the men at the bottom of the mountain that these women are ignoring, there's got to be somebody. There's got to be somebody. So here's the deal, and I tell this to men too. Don't be afraid, all right? Don't be afraid. You got to be discerning, and you got to flip. You got to flip your mentality. And again, it afflicts a lot of men. A lot of men want the women that are like 9s and 10s in looks. But are they really ready for that? Are they really ready for that? Because a lot of women that are 9 and 10s in looks come with a lot of problems like narcissism, a huge social media presence. And I'm not bemoaning people with huge social media presence. But when you have a woman who's a 9 and 10 and getting all that social media attention, are you really ready for that? Are you really ready to deal with that? I don't know too many men that are, and I don't know too many men who would jump at the opportunity to get with a woman who he has to compete with a whole lot of other guys for. I mean, I don't know any. Maybe they're out there. I don't know. Leave a message on my video. But if that's you, yeah, leave me a message. Sure. Okay. No judgment. No, this is a judgment-free zone. But honestly, guys, can we just like leave the 9s and 10s for the guys at the top of the mountain? Because there are a lot of gems amongst the coal. You just got to kind of dig them out. A lot of diamonds in the coal. You just got to dig them out, right? You just got to go dig through the coals and find the diamonds. They're there because they want the men that are up there, but they can't have them, so they're single. And so if you find them, but the problem is they usually won't see you because they're too busy looking up there. So I get that. And this is why I'm talking to the ladies, because ladies, you have to learn how to see those men. You have to learn how to see the miners. You have to learn how to see the electricians, the oil riggers, the loggers, those guys who work the infrastructure, the road repair crew. They don't have the most glamorous jobs. They really don't. But those are good men. The majority of them are good men. The majority of them want to get married and take care of their wife and take care of their kids. That's all they want. But you're ignoring them because you're looking for that guy up there who you can tout, who you can put on social media and say, hey, look at my man, who you can use to fill your own narcissistic tendencies. That's what you want. That's what you want, and I get it. Women are prone to narcissism, especially if they have a big social media presence. The biggest narcissists have the biggest social media presences. I figured that out. Men, women, start finding each other. Start friggin' finding each other. I get it, you're at the bottom. I get it, you're somewhere near the bottom of the mountain because you've skied your way down this relationship mountain. You've left the best relationship that you were going to get, right, because of poor planning or circumstance or whatever the case may be. You started somewhere that you shouldn't have. Maybe you started at the middle of the mountain, where you should have started at the top. Okay, got it. But wherever you are, that's where you are. And wherever you are, that's where you choose from. Now it's going to take a little more discernment. No, maybe not, because I would think, and somebody help me out with this in the comment section, but I would think that it would take a lot more discernment to sift through the people at the top. Even though there are fewer of them, like how many of them have serial relationships or serial trysts or a bunch of other suitors that they're sleeping with just because they can, just because people want them, and so they sleep around. How many people are like that up at the top? Probably a lot of them, I would guess. Like I say, somebody help me out in the comment section. But let me see this. I'll go to public chat. When we talk about the people at the top, how many of those are the narcissists? How many of those are the serial cheaters? Just because they have access to a whole lot of their 9s and 10s with a whole lot of access to 9s and 10s. So they're just going to go through each other. Men going through the women and women going through the men. You really want that up there, or do you want something kind of stable? And this is why I say, men, it is definitely okay. Again, free zone. Men, it is okay to admit that your girlfriend is a 5. Perfectly fine. But a lot of men don't want to do it. I don't know why. It's very liberating to admit that your girlfriend is a 5 and you know you love her anyway. 5 and all. Because she's a good woman. Your woman doesn't have to be a 10 to be a good woman. Like, who told you this? Women, it's okay to say that your husband is blue collar. Now, I know a lot of women that do. Know a lot of women married to blue collar men. And they treat their blue collar men as if those men were royalty. As the subject treats the royalty. Because those blue collar men are keeping the house afloat. Listen to my last podcast, last week's podcast, about being the breadwinner. If your man is the breadwinner, women, if your man is the breadwinner, you're the support. And a lot of women don't get this. They just don't. If your man is a breadwinner, you are the support. There is no such thing as partners. I did that show too. We ain't partners. All my shows converge. I'm telling you, all my shows converge. We ain't partners. If I'm the breadwinner, you're the support. Your job is to keep me good. Now, there's a lot of things that I could do on my own to keep myself good. However, if there's something that I need and I ask you to provide it, under no circumstances should you say no. None. Why? Because you are the support. It is literally your job to get me the things that I need so I can be physically and mentally on top of my game so I can keep making money, so I can keep this house afloat and keep making good decisions. I can't make good decisions if I'm worried about my woman not doing what she's supposed to be doing, not providing me the things that I need, yet asking me to provide her the things that she needs. A one-way relationship. What did I say about one-way relationships? A relationship's a contract. And if one person fulfills their end of the contract and the other person doesn't, that's not a relationship. That's slavery. So women, can you please start upholding your end of the contract? Especially if you're the support. Now, if you're the breadwinner, you also have an end of the contract. You're just on the other end of the contract where your man has to be your support. Now I get it. A lot of you women don't like your men as support. You just don't like your men in a support role, because even though you earn the money, you don't like making the decisions. You don't like the stress of having to manage the finances, because yes, it can get downright stressful at times. And I don't want to say that women are ill-equipped to handle the kind of stress that it takes to properly manage finances. I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say that a task like managing finances, just because of the way men's brains work, are better suited for men. This is why I don't advise men to get with a woman who out-earns them. I just don't. And a lot of men don't. A lot of men avoid women that out-earn them. And this is why it's well known that women who went to college, got their PhDs, and went high up on the corporate ladder priced themselves way out of the dating market. They priced themselves way out. Because, and again, here we go with skiing down the relationship mountain, they leave their man, right? Because they find out that after they get their degree and they earn more than their man, they'll leave him because he doesn't earn as much and she doesn't want to make the decisions. So she goes back out in the dating market, but in the dating market, there are a bunch of men who don't want to get with a woman that out-earns them. They just don't. There's no reason for it. So what are you going to do? Now you got to go down the mountain, and because you're an alpha babe, you're a boss babe, you want to make all the money, make all the decisions, even though you don't. But if you want a boyfriend, you got to get a beta. You have to, because like I said in my last podcast, if you're an alpha woman, you'll draw beta men. That's just it. If you're an alpha dominant woman, you'll draw submissive men. Think of it as magnetism. The laws of magnetism. The opposite poles attract. The positive pole always attracts the negative pole. If you put the two positive poles together, they'll push from each other. You put the positive and negative together, they'll stick. That's the same way it is with human relationships. An alpha man with an alpha woman, even though an alpha woman says, I need a man that's on my level, I need a man that's alpha like me, well, guess what? Shit don't work. It never works. It doesn't work. Even Beyonce is submissive to Jay-Z. It's just it. Ciara is submissive to Russell Wilson. That's just it. And when that submissiveness ends because of somebody's ego, usually the woman, this is why you see so many divorces in Hollywood among these power couples. You look at a power couple and you can pretty much count down, right? At the moment the news announces, oh, these two people got together. Think of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Think of Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is an alpha dude, and all the high-powered women wanted Brad Pitt. The problem is the high-powered women and the high-powered men, they're the same posts. So it wasn't going to work, right? Brad Pitt would have been good with settling down with somebody who wasn't in Hollywood, who was on his page. That was Brad Pitt's problem. But outside of that, let's go back to skiing down the mountain. Ladies, when you're a boss babe and you're down there at the bottom of the mountain because nobody wants you because you out-earned them, you have to choose from the beta men. And you don't like beta men because beta men are submissive. Beta men are in the support role, and that's not what you want. It's really not. Because, and I say the biggest quandary in the world is the alpha woman, because she attracts beta men, but she wants the alpha man. Even though getting with the alpha man, the alpha woman and the alpha man produces disastrous results. That's what they want. They don't want the beta men, because the beta men just aren't leaders. And they want to be led. Alpha women want to be led, which is another big paradox. They're alpha women that want to be led. Like, if you're an alpha woman, please explain this phenomenon to me in the comment section if you're an alpha woman. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, go to my Facebook or my Twitch. Well, it's not going to be on Twitch for long, but go to my Facebook and leave a comment explaining this phenomenon, because it's confusing to me why you would be an alpha woman but want to be taken care of. So explain that to me, please. Anyway, back to skiing down the mountain. Alpha women, you've priced yourself out of the market. You skied yourself down the mountain. What is there to look forward to? A bunch of betas that you don't want, and now you're going around wondering where the good men are. When all you need to do, just simple, this is what you need to do. Say, give up the alpha thing. That's all you need to do. Just give it up. Forget being an alpha. Forget being boss babe. I'm not saying forget your bag, because the money you made is the money you made. I get it. But give up being the alpha. Give up being the boss babe. Give up trying to run the show, right? Because again, the biggest paradox is the alpha woman who calls herself running the show that wants to be taken care of. It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. A lot of guys see that and it doesn't make sense. They're like, you're this alpha babe, but you want me to take care of you. Like, how does that comport? So give that up, and you'll find that you'll have better responses from men. Now, in next week's Valentine's Day super special, what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to revisit Great Expectations. There's going to be Great Expectations Part 2. But, I'm also going to visit personal ads, because here's the thing. Dating apps and personal ads, and again, I'm just giving you a preview of next week's show. Dating apps and personal ads. Dating apps and personal ads have a fundamental flaw. All the way back from the days where you post your personal ad in like a newspaper or something like that, or a magazine, all the way to today's age of dating apps, Tinder and Bumble and all this other stuff. They all have, going back throughout history, they've all have one fundamental flaw. I'll tell you what that fundamental flaw is next week. I'm going to tell you that fundamental flaw is the reason why not too many people end up with serious long-term relationships on dating apps. The chances of that are minimal at best. So I'll talk about that. In next week's show. And I'm going to talk about, again, Great Expectations. Because here's the deal, and this is why I'm doing this on Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is one of the bigger romantic paradoxes. Yours truly doesn't really do he does. Well, I do just because of my girlfriend. Before me and her got together, I was an avid boycotter of Valentine's Day. Avid boycotter. I would boycott Valentine's Day every year, because I saw Valentine's Day as one of the biggest pitfalls for romance. Even though it's a day set up for romance, this is why I say it's a paradox. It is absolutely a paradox. It's set up for romance, but it's absolutely one of the biggest killers of romance. It kills what it's set up for. It kills what it's meant for. Valentine's Day. Well, how does it do that? And I'll explain more next week. Next week is probably going to be a 2-hour special. It's going to be a 2-hour Valentine's Day special. But how does it do that? Because of Great Expectations. Day after Valentine's Day is the biggest day for divorce filings. Or the next business day, I should say, the next business day after Valentine's Day. Because this Valentine's Day is going to be on a Saturday. So Monday, right, the 16th, is going to be the biggest day of the year for filings of divorces. And the reason why is because of Great Expectations. Because people, mainly women, have these expectations from their men that are unreasonable, absolutely unreasonable, bordering on delusional. And because it doesn't happen the way they want it to happen, they're disappointed now. And now they want to file for divorce and irreconcilable differences, because maybe there's somebody out there who would do this grand overture that I want. That's Valentine's Day. It's the biggest killer of relationships because of Great Expectations. This is why I'm going to go into Great Expectations Part 2, and then I'm going to go into the pitfall of dating apps and personals. Because again, there is one fundamental flaw in dating apps and personal ads going way back through history. And I'll explain what that is. But to recap today's show, skiing down the relationship mountain, it's a malady among people, but primarily women, because women don't understand that they lose value over time. They literally do. They lose and going into from 20 to 50. From 20 to 30, they're fine. 30 to 40, they start to decline. The decline is slow, and then after 40, it becomes exponential, especially when you hit the wall. You lose your fertility cues slowly from 35, and then from 40 on, it's exponential, heading into menopause. You lose your fertility cues, and your fertility cues are the biggest source of a woman's value. It really is. It has nothing to do with your education. It has nothing to do with your career. It has nothing to do with your money. Why? Because when we look at you across the room and we see you for the first time, do we see your degree? Do we see what you do for a living? Maybe if you're wearing a police officer uniform or any kind of uniform, or if you have like your company across your shirt or whatever, you're in the company shirt or something, then we could probably discern what you do. But just seeing you in regular clothes, like at the grocery store or something like that, seeing you for the first time ever, we can't see your degree. We can't see your job. We can't see how much money you have in the bank. All we see are your looks. That's what we go primarily on. Now, people lost the argument. Well, looks are all a woman sees too. Yes, true, but you can literally tell by some of the things that men wear that are cues to what they have. And women have learned to latch on, such as your watch. Now, my watch isn't the best. I mean, I love it's a Mickey thing, but Apple Watch, Mickey Mouse face. But your watch, you can tell if it's cheap, watch, expensive watch. That's number one. Number two, your shoes. Men, we have this thing. We love good shoes. Why not? Every man loves good shoes. And you can tell the expensive shoes are well made. Expensive shoes are definitely well made. And if you have well made shoes, that means you have some money in the bank. I wouldn't say a suit because suits are relatively cheap nowadays, even though nobody really wears them anymore. But things like your watch and your shoes are your biggest giveaways. Maybe you have a ring or two, not like you're not wearing like an entire jewelry store on your hand, because that's a cue actually of the money you don't have. But I mean, if you have like one nice ring, but definitely your watch, definitely your shoes. Those are definite cues to what a man has. Because when he has money, he will buy a nice watch and he will buy nice shoes. So well-made watches aren't cheap. And we want the nicest watch we can get. We want the nicest shoes we can get. And nice shoes ain't cheap. So you look at the watch and look at the shoes. So women, when you say, well, we look at the man's looks, no, you look at the shoes and you look at the watch. You may not do it outright, but it's definitely something y'all notice. And I know this. I know this for a fact. Talk to way too many women. Talk to way too many of them. And they say, sometimes they'll admit, hey, I look for the watch first, or I look for the shoes first. Or they'll just mention it casually, I saw this guy, he had a really nice watch. I saw this guy, he had nice shoes. I think it might be a good catch. But your cues, ladies, your cues are disappearing. And when your cues start disappearing, your value starts disappearing. Because, unlike men, everything you buy tends to be on the nice. Well, not everything you try to buy tends to be on the nicer side, and I get it. Even though you don't have money, you like to spend the money you don't have on nice things. These are women, modern women for you. So we learn to look past that to looks, to just base looks. This is what we look at now. Well, that's what we looked at always, but we tend not to be distracted by things like shoes and bracelets and things like that, earrings and things like that. We'll look past that to your base looks. Give your look a ranking. 1 to 10. 1 being mud duck, 5 being your average. We tend to throw 7 out the window. So, for your own ranking purposes. 5 being average, 6 being cute, 7 being relatively pretty, to 8, 9, and 10, which is modeling material, right? Different levels of low, medium, high quality models. It's what we look at. And this is why I have to excoriate a lot of men. Because a lot of men would shoot for the 8, 9s, and 10s and not look at the 6s. 6s are cute. I don't know what's wrong with a 6. I literally don't. There are several women in my job that I would consider a 6. They're cute. Nothing wrong with that. They're cute. Now, they're not modeling material. A couple of them are pretty kind of overweight. One of them has like tattoos and stuff, but they're cute. Nothing wrong with them. Nothing wrong with them. I mean, if you're into chunkier women, right? But still, 6s. Maybe if they lost a little bit of weight, they'll pop up to a 7 and maybe even an 8. But they're 6s. Nothing wrong with it. Again, nothing wrong with admitting your girlfriend is a 5 or a 6. Because 5s and 6s are about 90% of this population. So there's nothing wrong with admitting that your wife or girlfriend's a 5. Anyway, back to what I was saying about skiing down the mountain. Women, please swallow the fact that your value decreases over time with your looks, with the loss of your fertility cues, and all of the relationships that you've been in. Because men take all of that into consideration when considering you for marriage. Now, I'm not talking about dating, right? Dating is what it is. We'll go out on a couple of dates. But when I'm talking about getting past that dating stage into, I'm going to start vetting you to put a ring on your finger, understand that there are certain base criteria that have to be met in order for men to consider that. Base criteria. And I went over that in some of my last videos, which is why when you ski down the relationship mountain, the men that have that base criteria remain at the top of the mountain while you're skiing down. And you don't have access to those men anymore because now they're at the top of the hill and you're headed toward the bottom. You can't go back up. So the men that now you have to choose from, because your value is lowering itself, is not going to be the quality of the men that you leave. So ladies, if there's nothing else you draw from this, because remember, we men look at history. We look at looks and we look at history. It's like buying a car, right? I'm going to end on this. It's like buying a car. Carfax, it exists for a reason. Because men got tired of going to the lot, the salesman telling them, oh, it's only had one owner. Then we bring it home, look up the owner, and find out that the owner was Avis Rent-A-Car and everybody and their mama drove it. That's why Carfax exists. Men have learned to look at the history of things. And the history is a big indicator of whether it would be a good long-term prospect. And if I bought a car that everybody and their mama drove it, it's not going to be a good long-term prospect. It's just not. Because with use comes wear and tear. And with wear and tear comes mechanical issues. Just like with women. With more use comes more baggage. With more baggage comes more problems. That's just it. Now, can that be overcome? Yes, by flipping your mentality and be willing to get on a man's page. Problem is, a lot of women, a lot of baggage don't want to get on a man's page. They just don't. So they stay at the bottom of the mountain. That's it. And then they end up 50 years old and single talking about, there's nothing a man can do for me that I can't do for myself, and men are headaches. That's them. Ladies, understand that if you've already skied your way to the bottom, if you're a little bit older, you have some LTRs under your belt, understand that I'm not saying it's over. I'm not. I'm just saying you have to flip your mentality and then look around and pick from what's down there, because there are good men down there. There really are. There are some bad men too, but there are good men, and if you flip your mentality and you find one that's a good man, you literally have to see him first, and after you see him, you have to be willing to get on his page. You really do. Because if you don't, another woman who's coming down the mountain will. And she'll probably be willing to get on his page and take him right from under your nose. Right from under your nose. Ask any woman that lost the man that they had in the friend zone to another woman. Ask them. They had good men and didn't see him, and some other woman came and got him. And now they're jaded. Wait, why is he talking to another woman? Because you didn't show him interest. So women, if you don't want that to be you, you're at the bottom of the mountain, you better get on his page real fast, or else somebody's going to take him, and then you'll be out in the cold. Again, there ain't enough men to go around. You better get yours where you can. If you're just starting out and you don't have a whole lot of relationships under your belt, or maybe you don't have any at all, start at the top of the mountain. Don't jump on the first thing that becomes available, because the first thing that becomes available might be in the middle of the mountain, and you'll lose access to everything at the top because of your decision in a long-term relationship. You'll lose everything. You'll lose everything at the top of the mountain. You'll lose access to all of that because you decided to start in the middle, and you have to ski your way down from there. So if you don't have a whole lot of relationship experience, long-term relationship experience, you don't have any at all, you can't afford to be willy-nilly with your relationship choices. You have to make smart decisions. You have to start at the top. And when you start at the top and you find somebody at the top, you have to get on this page, PDQ. Because if you break up with him, the next one ain't going to be as good. And the one after that ain't going to be as good as the one you left. And then the one after that. And this is why. This is absolutely why. The divorce rate for second, third, and fourth marriages get higher exponentially. The second marriage has an exponentially higher divorce rate than the first marriage. The third marriage has an exponentially higher divorce rate than the second marriage, because you're skiing down the relationship mountain. I'm ABC. Thanks for listening. I'm on Twitch now. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple Podcasts. I'm on Facebook. You can catch me live recording this podcast if you're on Twitch and Facebook. And if you want the audio on demand, go to Spotify, or if you have an iPhone or iPad or something like that, anything with go to Apple Podcasts and look up the ABC Podcast on Riverside. And go to Spotify and look up the ABC Podcast on Riverside. And when you see me in the blue suit and sunglasses, that's the show that you want. It's the ABC Podcast on Riverside, not Blog Talk Radio, on Riverside. I'll come back next week with the Valentine's Day special. It's going to be a 2-hour thing. Because again, Valentine's Day is just one of those days that it's a paradox. It's made for romance, but it kills romance. So I'm going to get into why that is, go into the pitfalls of personal ads and the pitfalls of dating apps and things like that. Maybe not dating services, because if you go see a person live, they'll be able to explain to you what the hell the real deal is, but you have to be willing to listen. Or you can come to me and I can give you marginal advice. But yeah, anyways, You can catch me on those streaming services. Also, I'm pretty active on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok, I have 2 accounts there. I have J Ramsey ABC, of course. And then I have another one because I noticed that for some reason, usually because of me, my accounts get clipped. And what I mean by get clipped is I'll do something on a live and then TikTok will take me down and they'll ban me for a few days. So that's usually my fault. I haven't really ran up against anybody who's gotten me taken down really. But like every time I get clipped for a few days, it's usually my fault. So what I did was I set up an alternate account so that if I ever get myself clipped again, then I can go into that other account and then drive on. But that account is J Ramsey ABC Alt. J Ramsey ABC Alt on TikTok. Follow that and then follow my main J Ramsey ABC account. It's a J Ramsey ABC with a big red X because I'm Gen X. So that's it. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you back here on Valentine's Day. I'm out. See you later. Peace. Now go out and make this world a better place.